All right, everyone, buckle up. Today, we're diving headfirst into million-dollar micro business, how to turn your expertise into a digital online course.
Ooh, yeah, I've heard good things about this one.
It's got me dreaming big, let me tell you. Picture this, me sipping something tropical on a beach, my online course practically running itself.
The dream.
Right. And it's not just me with these digital nomad fantasies. This book is packed with stories about people just like us who turn their knowledge into a thriving online business.
Yeah, the success stories are pretty compelling.
Like Denise Duffield Thomas, have you heard of her?
I have, yeah.
Yeah,
The chillpreneur, right.
exactly. Building an empire by teaching online courses. Now that's what I call inspiring.
It's a pretty powerful concept when you think about it.
Totally. And what I appreciate about this book is that the author, Tina Tower, doesn't sugarcoat it.
Right, it's not just some get-rich-quick scheme.
No, she's all about putting in the work, which makes sense considering she's been there, done that in both the online and brick-and-mortar business worlds.
Yeah, she's got that real-world experience.
Starting with a tutoring franchise, can you imagine?
Oh, I can only imagine. Sounds exhausting.
Right. And then transforming that into a business that lets her travel the world with her family. Talk about living the dream.
That's the goal, isn't it? So are we going to talk about why everyone and their mother seems to be launching an online course these days?
We are. In fact, Tina dives right into that. She argues that the way we learn has fundamentally changed.
I can see that. Everything's so fast-paced now.
Right. We're bombarded with information 204/7.
Oh,
Social media, news feeds, blogs. It's overwhelming.
Absolutely. It's like information overload.
Exactly. And Tina says people are craving a clear path, a structured learning experience.
Which is where online courses come in.
They provide that roadmap people are looking for. It's like having a guide in a foreign country. You know where you're going and you don't feel lost.
I like that analogy. It's about providing that clear path to a desired outcome.
And it's clearly working. Remember those success stories I mentioned?
Yeah, they were hard to miss.
One that stood out was Rachel's flower art course. Her story is amazing.
What was so special about her course?
It pays for itself after just 2 sales.
Wow. Two
It-
fails.
2. That's it. Clearly she's onto something.
So what's the secret sauce? What made her course such a hit?
Well, for one, she found her niche.
Ah, the power of niche. We've all heard about that.
But it's true. She's not trying to be everything to everyone. She's laser focused on a specific skill, and it's paying off big time.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the people who are experts in their field but terrified to take the leap, putting themselves and their knowledge out there?
Tina addresses that fear head on. She actually shares a personal story about putting off getting back on water skis after a really bad fall.
Oh, I know that feeling. The fear can be paralyzing.
Exactly. But she emphasizes that you don't have to go from 0 to 60 overnight.
Baby steps, right?
Exactly. Start small, take that first step, and build from there.
I like that. It's about making it feel less daunting.
Right, because fear can be so isolating. Have you ever heard of Tim Ferriss's fear-setting exercise?
I have, yeah. It's about facing those fears head on, right?
Exactly. And Tina recommends it as a way to break through those mental barriers.
Okay, that's helpful. But how do you even begin to figure out who you're targeting with all this?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Tina talks about identifying your ideal customer and gives them a name. Alice Carrington.
Alice Carrington. I like it. It's catchy.
Right. It's more memorable than saying target audience.
Hmm.
So who is this Alice Carrington?
Imagine you're writing a letter to your ideal student. You know everything about them, their hopes, their dreams, their struggles. That's Alice Carrington.
Okay, I can picture Alice now. But why is it so important to have this clear picture?
Because it guides every decision you make. From crafting your course content to marketing your course and even pricing it. It's like having a roadmap for your entire business.
It makes total sense, right? Knowing exactly who you're talking to. And speaking of getting specific, Tina dives into the nitty-gritty of building your brand and website. She even has tips for registering your domain name. Apparently getting that .com is non-negotiable, is that right? Is the .com really that important?
It makes a difference. It's about credibility. When people see .com, they instantly trust it more. It just looks more legit.
That makes sense. It's like those little details that can make or break you. Speaking of details, Tina mentions using Google Workspace, but I'll be honest, that whole world of online tools still feels a bit overwhelming to me.
It can feel like a lot, but Google Workspace is basically like your online office. Email, file storage, everything in one place.
So it's about streamlining things.
Exactly. It's about making your life easier and more organized, especially when you're juggling a million things as a new entrepreneur.
And we all know how easy it is to feel overwhelmed when you're first starting out. But one thing that struck me in this section wasn't about tech at all. It was Tina's emphasis on authenticity. She even says she doesn't wear makeup on camera if she doesn't normally wear it.
I love that. It's so refreshing.
Right. It's like we don't have to be these perfectly polished versions of ourselves online.
Exactly. People connect with realness. Think about the people you've learned from, the ones who've inspired you. It's their passion and knowledge that drew you in, not whether or not they had the perfect hair and makeup.
Totally. And it goes back to Alice Carrington, right?
Yeah.
Knowing your ideal customer and what resonates with them. Speaking of resonating, let's talk about making your content engaging. Tina's a big advocate for what she calls edutainment.
Edutainment. I like it. It's catchy. But what does it actually mean? How do you make educational content entertaining?
Well, she says it's all about finding that sweet spot between being informative and keeping things interesting. She suggests using a mix of face-to-camera, slides, even screen shares to keep people engaged.
It's about breaking things up, visually and otherwise.
Right. Think about those documentaries you get sucked into. They're packed with information, but they use all these different elements to tell the story and keep you hooked.
Makes sense. Now let's talk about actually launching your course. That feels like the big leagues.
It can feel daunting, but Tina breaks it down into manageable steps. She shares a story about Tracy Harris, who made $25,000 from her very first launch.
$25,000
Uh-huh.
from her first launch. Okay, I need to hear more about Tracy's strategy.
Me too. And one of the big takeaways is the power of building an email list.
Email lists. Those are still a thing. What about social media? Isn't that where it's at these days?
Tina argues that email is still king.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. Why is email so important?
It's about owning your platform. With social media, you're at the mercy of algorithms and changing rules. But with email, you have a direct line of communication with people who have specifically asked to hear from you.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you even begin to build an email list?
That's where lead magnets come in.
Lead magnets. Okay, that sounds a little jargony. Break it down for me. What are we talking about here?
It's simpler than it sounds. A lead magnet is basically a valuable piece of content that you offer for free in exchange for someone's email address.
So what kind of content are we talking about? Give me some examples.
It could be anything from a cheat sheet or a template to a free mini course or even access to a webinar.
So the key is that it's something valuable, something that your ideal customer would actually want.
Exactly. It's about giving them a taste of what you offer and leaving them wanting more.
I like it. It's
Yeah.
all about that know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah.
But once you have people on your list, how do you actually convert them into paying customers?
That's where webinars come in, which, according to Tina, are the gold standard for selling online courses.
Webinars. They still make those. Okay, I'm kidding.
Okay.
But seriously, why are webinars so effective?
Because they allow you to connect with your audience in real time, answer their questions, and showcase your expertise, all without having to leave your house.
So it's about building that personal connection.
Exactly. And demonstrating your value. Tina emphasizes the importance of honesty and transparency throughout the webinar. You're not trying to trick anyone into buying.
No, it should always be about providing value and building relationships. So, what about the actual content of a webinar? What kind of things should you cover?
Tina is all about practical tips. She says to start by setting clear expectations. You're not going to cover everything in your course during a webinar, and that's okay.
Right. It's more about giving a taste of what's to come, highlighting the key takeaways, and getting people excited about your course. But how do you keep people engaged during a webinar? I've been to a few where I found myself checking my email after 5 minutes.
Well, first of all, you need engaging content, but Tina also stresses the importance of interactivity. Ask questions, use polls, make it a two-way conversation.
I can see how that would make a big difference. Make people feel like they're part of the experience, not just passive observers. But what about the technical side of things? I'm not exactly a tech wizard.
Tina gets it. She's all about being prepared for anything, which includes having a backup plan for those inevitable tech glitches.
That is good advice. Always have a plan B. Speaking of plans, what about after the launch? Tina doesn't just leave you hanging after you hit that publish button. She talks about building a sustainable business, which is something that often gets overlooked. And she's refreshingly honest about the fact that it costs money to make money. So, does she get into the nitty-gritty of managing those expenses?
She does, and it's not just about vague advice like budget wisely. She breaks it down into percentages. Like you should aim to allocate about 20% of your revenue to your own income, 20% to profit, 20% to your team if you have one, 10% to marketing, and so on.
I love that she gives those specific numbers. It makes it so much easier to wrap your head around.
Right. It's not just this abstract concept anymore, but it's not just about the numbers, it's also about the mindset.
Right, absolutely. Because our beliefs about money can really hold us back.
Speaking of mindset, one thing that really resonated with me was Tina's advice to treat your business like an experiment. An experiment. Okay, I've never thought about it like that. Tell me more.
It's about embracing the unknown, being open to trying new things, and not being afraid to fail.
Because failure is inevitable, right? Especially when you're trying something new.
Exactly. And when you view your business as an experiment, those failures become valuable data points.
It's like those scientists who say, we didn't get the results we expected, but we learned something.
Exactly. It's all about the learning process.
Hmm.
And speaking of learning, one thing we haven't touched on yet is the importance of community. Tina talks about how important it is to foster a sense of community among your students. Why do you think that is?
I think it's crucial, especially in the online world where it's easy to feel isolated. Having that connection with other people who are on the same journey as you can make all the difference.
Totally. It's like having a built-in support system.
Ah.
So how does Tina suggest course creators build these communities?
Well, she mentions platforms like Kajabi that have those features built right in, which is super convenient.
Right, everything's all in one place. But she also says even something as simple as a Facebook group can be really effective, especially when you're first starting out.
And it's not just about having the platform, it's about showing up consistently and nurturing those connections.
Exactly. Tina emphasizes the importance of being present in your community, answering questions, offering encouragement, facilitating conversations. It's about creating a space where people feel seen, heard, and supported.
Which ultimately leads to better results for everyone, right?
Absolutely. Students are more likely to succeed when they feel supported, and that success reflects well on you as the course creator.
It's a win-win. And speaking of wins, I love how Tina doesn't shy away from the financial aspect of things. She's very open about the fact that building a successful online course business takes investment, not just time and effort, but actual money.
Right. It's about investing in yourself and your business. And she encourages us to challenge those limiting beliefs we might have about money. Remember, Alice Carrington is out there ready to pay for the value you offer.
So true. Now, before we wrap up, I have to ask, what's the one piece of advice from Million Dollar Micro Business that really stuck with you?
For me, it's the idea of embracing the experimental mindset. Treating my business as an ongoing experiment takes the pressure off needing to have all the answers right away. It allows me to be more playful, more curious, and ultimately more successful in the long run.
I love that. It's about enjoying the journey and being open to the possibilities. And, it reminds me of something Tina said at the beginning of the book. She talked about how the world needs what you have to teach.
I remember that. Your unique experiences, your knowledge, your perspective, it matters.
It really does. So if you're feeling that nudge, that little voice inside telling you to go for it, to share your gifts with the world, I hope you will. You never know who needs to hear your message.
So well said.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Million Dollar Micro Business. We hope this has sparked some ideas and given you the confidence to take that next step toward building your dream business.
And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So what step will you take today?
We can't wait to see what you create. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep chasing those big, audacious dreams.